Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel Brains and Beauty. I'm a PhD student studying brains and also a makeup lover, and today's video is going to be part of my series on this channel called Make It or Buy It. In this series, I mix shadows I already own to dupe the color stories of palettes I want to buy. This allows me to 1. Save money, 2. Use the shadows I already own before they expire, and 3. Let me know if there's anything I actually can't make and should purchase. So that's why it's a make it or buy it. It also lets me sample the color story to see if I'd actually use it, since I'm only mixing a small amount of eyeshadow in these tiny pans. So these are the previous palettes from the Make It or Buy It series. So I did the e.l.f. Mint to Be palette released in January, and then I did the Melt Merte palette, which is actually a discontinued palette, but I just really loved the color story and I wanted to see if I could make it. And it was so much fun to make this. I'll leave the video linked above. It was the previous one in this series. So now what I want to do is I want to make the Natasha Denona Gold palette. And just for reference, so you can see the size of these, this is the normal size of a single eyeshadow, and these are the 15mm tiny pans. So really, I'm just taking a little bit of product from the eyeshadows I already own in my collection and mixing them to make the shades that I don't own. And if I do own a certain shadow, I'll just use that in its place. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I have already washed and sanitized everything, and these are the magnetic pans that I'm going to be using. And even though the Natasha Denona Gold palette is something that was released years ago, it was always on my wish list, but I never actually bought it. And it's kind of crazy to have anything on my makeup wish list really stay on it and make me want it passionately for many years. Usually after 3 months, the kind of newness of the release, dissipates, and then I'm not actually as interested in it. But this palette, I've been interested in it for so long, I just haven't really bought it because the pans are so large. It comes with so much product, and I don't know if I'd use it all up, and just, I've never dropped that much money for one palette. I feel like if the Natasha Denona Gold palette was in the meaty size, like the medium size, and not the really large one, I would buy it in a heartbeat, but it's just that I couldn't justify that big of a price point. So I have the mini gold palette, and I really love this palette so much. And I want one of those big palettes. Like I really want to. I'm just waiting for the right color story and the right size. And it really is a beautiful color story. Now I do lean more towards cool tones and like warm golds, but I felt like this was kind of my fantasy gold palette, like this was the gold that was going to work for me and I was going to enjoy, because it kind of leans like even the mattes, they don't lean like orangey too much, they kind of lean yellow. And I also love pairing kind of yellows and golds with blues, so like the teals and the golds, everything just looks so pretty. And every time I see Hannah from her YouTube channel, Hannah Louise Poston, I just, when I see her videos on the Natasha Denona Gold palette, every time she like pulls it out to include it in one of her BYOPs or anything like that, it's so beautiful. So I really wanted it. And it kind of set me off into kind of deciding, like, this was like at night. I was like, I need to purchase this. I need to do it fast, and I'm just gonna go for it. And I started like just doing a like quick last search on YouTube of just like looking at the swatches again, just really making sure that I'm actually gonna drop so much money on this palette. And I I was watching so many videos, and they were all like obviously raving about it because it was great. And then I actually saw Hannah's video on it again, and I decided, like, her first video on it when she first like reviewed it, and I decided to click on it again, and she obviously loves it, so she spoke really highly of it. But then near the end, she was kind of like, I also want you guys, like, as she always does, which is I love her so much. She always includes a part in her reviews where she tells you to kind of stop and reflect. And she kind of said something along the lines of like, you should look at what's in your collection that's kind of similar and gives you like this feeling. And so that led me to basically having like a midnight swatch party. I can insert some clips in here. I might just post a short on it. I just kind of turned the camera, but I didn't even like, I wasn't paying attention to what I was filming. I was just trying to like swatch all of my golds and figure out if I could like dupe it. And I think from doing those swatches, the conclusion that I came to was I can't dupe it. Like, it is so beautiful and different than what I own. but I didn't, it actually stopped me from like pulling the trigger and buying it immediately because I was going to that night, but it stopped me because I realized that, yeah, the golds and greens and those kind of colors in my collection aren't what are in the Natasha Denona Gold palette. I still love the ones that I own, and if I were to get the Natasha Denona Gold, I would not use these as much. And I think that was the one thing that stopped me from getting the Natasha Denona Gold palette. So what I'm thinking today is I'm going to pull some of those shades in, the ones that I were the reason why I didn't buy Natasha Denona Gold, because I wanted to use them more. So I'm going to pull them into this. And I'm also going to do what I usually do in my Make It or Buy It, which is the shades that I don't own and I really wanted from the Natasha Denona Gold, I'm going to try to make them. So that was a bit of a long intro, but I wanted to tell you a bit of the backstory because that was just like the experience that I had. And in case you're kind of like in the same situation where you really wanted it for a long time and now you're realizing it's discontinued or it's about to be discontinued and you're entering that kind of panic phase mode, just I kind of want to show both for you and for myself that we can use the shadows in our collection to get a similar effect. I'm going to start with the shimmers in the palette. As I said a second ago, that I'm going to use some of the colors I already own. Some of them work really well for the palette, so let's take a look at that in terms of what I can already put in it. So one of the tricky things with these types of videos is I'm relying off of swatches online to kind of figure out what the color story is. And last time with the Myrte palette, it was just like I was looking at too many, and you know, depending on the lighting and the person's undertone and all of these things, it can really change what the colors end up looking like. And so it was like, it was just too much. So I'm just gonna choose one swatch picture that I see online, like of someone swatching it, and the original swatch is just shown on Sephora. Okay, so starting in the top left of the palette, so for this shade, I actually think as I was doing all of those swatches of all the golds in my collection, I realized that this gold from the mini gold palette from Natasha Denona was actually probably the closest I have to kind of a greeny gold effect. So I'll give it a swatch here. So it's the closest I have that has that kind of like greeny gold shift, and then underneath it's more of a warm brown gold kind of base. So that is definitely a contender for that top left shade. For the bottom kind of left shade, I feel like that one is also a greeny gold, but it has a lot more grunginess to it. So looking in my collection, so I feel like this shade Chandelier is a pretty good goldy green grungy kind of shade. So that is also a shade that I'm thinking of including. There's also this shade, which is pulling a bit. Okay, so on camera you can see the green in it, but in real life it just looks like a straight up pink purple, so I don't know if I should include this one. Yeah, you can see it's a very pinky purple, so I guess I'm not going to include this one. So I'm still leaning towards these two. I think also actually in the mini gold there's this like brownie green kind of shimmer. It's really pretty. Okay, so I'm thinking actually this would be good for the kind of grungy shade. This one for the lime chrome shade, and then this one will be for the Alchemist gold shade that has like a hint of green to it, but it's also like just like this bronzy gold shade. So I feel like these are actually really good. This one, honestly, it's not as pretty like as the one like as the brass shade, but I mean, if you were to top it, as long as I have Chandelier in the palette and I were to kind of top it, I feel like that's starting to give us that effect of the brass shade. I'm just going to make it work like this because these kinds of duochrome textural shades are hard to make. Like, you can't just mix a gold and a brown and a green and then like just normal shimmers and then make these. These have to be like the actual pigments have to be shifty. So I think this is actually really close though for those three shades. So I'm gonna go with this. So this is great that I've already done the sampling of all of my eyeshadows. So we're gonna open this and grab those shades. Okay, so I've moved some things around so that's easier for me to grab. So we have this brown green shade from Natasha Denona. So if you haven't seen my video on this, I basically just went through all of my eyeshadows and took a sample from the top layer. So I just scraped a little bit off using this, and then I pressed it into these tiny pans for all the shadows in my collection in my palettes, so that I would basically still be able to keep my palettes because I love them the way they are, but I also would be able to have them as these kinds of tiny magnetic singles so that I can kind of build palettes with and stuff like that. Instead of buying more singles when I already have those colors in my eyeshadow palettes. I'll link it up above, but it was like 140 plus eyeshadows that I sampled, and it's really satisfying when I kind of like just completed each one and plopped it in. But anyway, so let's get started. I'm going to take this brown shade. Okay, so let's do the kind of bronzy shades on the side now. These just look like really pretty metallic golden bronzes. And this side is full of neutrals. So I'm likely going to reach mostly from here. So I'm going to take this shade, and then this shade. And also there's a true gold over here. So those are the shades. Let me swatch them. I also have this Urban Decay Gold and Half Baked. Okay, so those are the golds that we're looking at right now. So I think the True Gold would be perfect for ooooo, kind of that center shade in the palette. And then I think this kind of bronzy gold, the Varus shade, would be perfect. I think this one is closer for the shade ooooo. This one has more of that goldiness to it, so I think this one is really close to ooooo. And then lastly, the half-baked one. This isn't anywhere near Kava. This is just like a metallic champagne gold shade, and I know that Kava is a lot more sparkly, so I don't have anything like that in my collection. That's like a very sparkly neutral champagne shade. When I was watching Hannah's video, she did also a second one on duping the vibes of the Natasha Denona Gold palette. She mentioned how Kava was very similar to kind of like a liquid glitter that you might have that's gold. So I'm going to be using, and I think she even mentioned the Urban Decay one. So what I'm thinking is I'll put this shade in. That's kind of the base of Kava. I feel like this is identical to what the base of Kava is, but it just doesn't have a sparkle. So then I'll just kind of top it off with some of the Midnight Cowboy. I don't know if I can capture it on camera. So I don't know if you can see the gold sparkle, but that's basically really identical to how Kava looks like online with that Urban Decay base, and then the really sparkly Midnight Cowboy from Urban Decay as well. So let's put these shades into the palette. I'll turn the light back on. Okay, so my Urban Decay shade is all the way back here. The Urban Decay from the Heavy Metals palette now are over here, like those golds and bronzes that I was swatching. Okay, so this is what the palette is looking like so far. A lot of gold yumminess. So now there's just one more shimmer. For the Shimmer Sparks, that one is actually not something I have in my collection. It's like a very glittery white shade. And I don't have any eyeshadows that are like that, but I do have this highlighter from MIBI. That is a Diamond Bomb highlighter, and I feel like it's honestly an exact dupe. I hope you can see all the sparkles. So this is like perfect as Kava, having that kind of similar sparkly effect. The only thing is, this formula is very strange. It's like a kind of like a putty, like it's not, or even a little bit balmy. Like it's not completely like gel, but it's definitely not powder. And I've never tried pressing something that wasn't powder, so this is gonna be a learning experience for us both. So let's just try. I hope it works, and if it doesn't, we'll just use like another shade. But I want to really try to see if I can get this type of highlighter and formula to press into this tiny pan. It's very strange. I don't know if this is gonna work. I mean, I guess it would work if it like mushes together. very, like, I just kind of scooped it in. Let's see. Oh, that did not feel right. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna push these in. I might have. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, this is. Okay, you have to lay it down perfectly flat as you press, or else if it's leaning one way or another, all of the product is gonna mush to one side. Yeah, honestly, like I can just kind of scoop a little bit back even. It's not that bad. And in terms of here, just like pressing it and mushing it back together. Okay, see, I don't know why I was so scared. I'm always scared of things I shouldn't be scared of. This, because of its formula, it easily mushes back together. I'm just gonna clean up the sides. So now we're done with the shimmers, or no, actually we have one more. So we have this shimmer here. I didn't even realize that like the Natasha Denona shimmers were in columns. Like that wasn't something I realized till I started doing this. But okay, so for this column of shimmers, there's one more here, and in the kind of official Sephora swatches, it looks like it's like a bluey, like a kind of just a cool tone blue silvery kind of shade, but in other people's swatches it looks more gray. Let's try to make that shade. Okay, so I'm thinking of whether anything in here could kind of start us off. How about this shade? Like it is kind of like a turquoise, but it's a lot more vibrant than the one in the Natasha Denona palette. Honestly, why do I kind of want this more? No, okay, I'm gonna go with what I'm trying to get as close as possible to it. So I have these two kind of tealy, aqua, bluey shades. I honestly think this is really close. I just need to kind of add some silver to it. Let's try that. Or even actually just mixing this shade and this shade. Let me see again if I'm able to layer these. Sometimes you kind of get a hint about how something will turn out once you mix it if you kind of just layer it on your hand. But maybe it's still a bit too vibrant. Like it's not gray enough. Like if I were to take this silvery shade, I feel like that's closer to what I'm seeing online in terms of the swatches. But it's almost starting to look a little bit icy. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna take a look at my collection. Quick kind of look at it. This is another thing that I found really beneficial of doing this sampling is I can take a quick look. So I feel like I definitely will use this. I just want to know what to mix it with. So let's switch that again. Okay, I feel like that didn't make it icy, and it's more of that kind of gray blue. So I think this is the right way to go with it, and because the undertone is a turquoise, I know that I'm not actually making a cobalt blue, like it is taking this turquoise with the turquoise sparkle here as well, and then I'm going to mix it with this shade from the Urban Decay palette. So before I tried the silver, but actually the kind of gunmetal kind of gray shade is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to start by grabbing just a little bit of this. I don't want to grab too much. I found out last time that basically with these shimmers, some shimmers you honestly don't need to mix. Like you don't need to mix with a pestle. You don't need to go so hardcore. Like the edges of this are already kind of rough and help you with the mixing. And then you can just kind of mush them around and they will mix on their own. With the mattes though, like no, you really want to mix those with a pestle. Okay, it's still looking a little bit blue. I'm gonna grab some more of the gray. we're gonna move on to the mattes in this palette. So Dijon is definitely the matte that I am the most excited to make because I don't have that kind of color in my collection. It's like a mustardy olive. It's just so beautiful. So we're going to make that today. I'm going to take a look again at the shades that I do own to see what I can work with. I could either put in this brown, go with the yellow, green, red, and then I could make like an olivey mustard brown. Or I could lean into this one, and it already has that kind of camel tone warmth. But you know I don't want to do that because this is kind of orangey, like it has a little bit of, it has orange in it. And I think what I'm so drawn to Dijon is like it's a very much a yellow greeny, like a yellow olivey brown. It doesn't have that like really warm tone orange side to it. So I'm going to take this cool tone brown. We'll start with that. We'll add in the yellow, the green, and the red. This might be a complete flop, but we'll see. This is just part of the process. I mean, last time I didn't believe I could make a true red, so I'm gonna believe more in myself. I think that's also part of this series, is just me believing more in the power of what I can actually do when I mix shadows together. That looks like delicious, spicy goodness. Alright, so I'm gonna mix these. So this is the brown shade that I have right now. I think I'm going to add a bit more yellow and green and red as well. Or no, actually I feel like I have enough red. Do you see how that like red undertone is really coming through? So I'm just gonna add some more yellow and green. Okay, so I think I went way too far in the olive green realm. This is still a really cool shade, but this is more olivey than what Dijon is. I love it though, like I love that I could just make an olive. Like this is a true olive right now. So let's just add yellow at this point and until we get that kind of mustardy shade. That's kind of why you add just a little bit at a time, so that you're not making too much of a shade you didn't expect. Maybe actually adding a little bit more red in might neutralize the green, so let's try that. So this is what it's looking like. Okay, so that's the shade we have right now. I feel like that's really close to Dijon. Maybe just adding a bit more yellow because it's looking like a olivey mustard rather than a mustard with an olive undertone. So I'm gonna add some more yellow. getting closer. I might go in with just a little bit of this, just a little bit. I feel like the yellow is lightening it a little bit, so let's add some more red. I'm just trying to like dull down the green just a little bit more. I don't want to lose that olive, but it just seems like Dijon like leans more mustard than it does olive. Okay, we did it. I think we did it. This is the shade. This is Dijon. It's like mustardy green. Yes, okay. Let me just look at the swatches one more time. Yeah, this is literally exactly the shade that I see in the swatches. And it doesn't, I don't know, like seeing it on camera right now, it might lean a little bit. No, it's actually perfect. Like this is perfectly Dijon. Oh my gosh, I am so happy. Okay, so we made Dijon. I'm going to scoop it up, press it in. I took a bit of time with this one, but I really wanted to because I know I'm going to use this shade so often. Even once I'm done with like the Natasha Denona Gold palette and I kind of return the shades back to this palette, I'll still, you know, use this shade in future build your own palettes and stuff because it's such a unique and gorgeous shade. Oh my gosh, I am so proud of myself being able to make this shade. Like, ah. In the future, I might do videos where like if some of these that I've like these colors that I've made, if I run out of them, I'll just do a video where I like remake the shades that I ran out of, and I can even talk to you guys about how much I enjoyed them, how many uses I got out of these tiny pans, and all that kind of stuff. So I will leave making more of this for a future video because I already know I'm gonna love this and use it completely up. So let's put this into our palette. Oh my gosh. I hope you can see the undertones. We are right by a natural window, so I'm just gonna try to shield the light a little bit so it's not washing it out. Do you see that? Colors are so pretty. It's really coming together. So I think for the next shade that I want to do, the shade Log, it just looks like an ordinary dark neutral brown in all of the swatches. It's kind of like this shade from the Huda Beauty palette, which just looks like a brown, but it's actually has like an olive undertone to it, even though it just looks like a neutral brown. I think that's how the Natasha Denona brown is, except darker. And I don't know if you're going to be able to catch it on camera, but I think you can see what I'm saying even better if you compare it to some of the other browns. So this is the Emerald Palette Brown. You see how it just has a hint more olive than like this is a true neutral brown palette. It's just like got this touch to it that you wouldn't notice unless you like compared it to a true neutral. And I think that's kind of what's happening with this dark brown. And if it isn't, if it's just a neutral dark brown, honestly it'd be even better if it had a little touch of, you know, magical olive undertone. So what I'm gonna do, so I have this, it's a dark brown. I think it's a neutral. I feel like it's purpley, slightly purpley. Let's see compared to the brown from this palette, my more true neutral palette. Yeah, do you see how that brown is more of a true neutral brown? Okay, so I'm gonna go with this one, and I'm gonna deepen it a bit with the black. Okay, so then we have a true neutral brown. This is kind of what the swatches are showing, like just a dark brown. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? There's like little remnants of this olivey green mustardy shade in here, and I'm thinking I'll just leave that there instead of cleaning it out, and just a touch of this will mix into the dark brown. So it gives you like the slightest undertone without actually mixing anything in. So that's the plan. I'm gonna go with this shade and scoop it out. Okay. So let's pop that in. Okay, so now we just have the formats, and I'm thinking a lot about this kind of dark tealy blue matte for a while as I was building this palette and mixing things. The reality is I bought this Wet n Wild palette because it duped the vibes of the Natasha Denona Gold palette. I just wanted to kind of get a sample of it and, you know, taste the color story, and I love this color story so much. It's just the formula is not the best, so that's why I don't end up reaching into it much. But I'm thinking if I use this blue, because it's literally like the exact blue that's in that palette for Python, if I didn't use this blue now, I feel like I never will. So I want to put this into the palette as Python. And you know, if I play around with this palette and all of these gorgeous shades and I really feel like I need like to actually create Python, it's gonna be pretty easy. Like I can just take this Huda Beauty teal shade with a bit of blue and a black, and it's easily made. So I feel like I'm gonna try to give this a chance, because if I don't, you know, I feel like I'll never use this shade. So I want to use it, and it's literally the exact same color. Yeah, like that fits perfectly. So looking at this now, I feel like just looking at this row, it's kind of monotone. It's kind of the same level of depth, and I think it's because of this dark brown shade. I love this so much, so I think that's why I kind of leaned to using it. But when I was first thinking of building this palette, I was thinking of a different neutral brown, so let's try to put that in, just because I think it's supposed to be a bit lighter. Yeah, that looks much better. It's lighter, so it's actually from this CoverGirl palette. We'll just give it a swatch. It's a really pretty neutral brown. I just swatched the other one out as well. And yeah, I think it will complement this palette a lot, so I'm gonna put that in instead. Even though I really loved this color, I think this is better suited for this color story. And what else? I also kind of just feel like maybe this gold is not popping as much as it should. It is the only true gold eyeshadow I have in my collection, so it is the only thing I can really use for the shade ooooo. You know, I also have a highlighter from Fenty Beauty. So I have the Trophy Wife highlighter. So I could use this, and it's super sparkly and pretty. But see, it doesn't have much of a base to it, so it would be just like a really sparkly topper. Or I could mix Trophy Wife with the gold eyeshadow that I have, and maybe it would just brighten it. Again, I don't know, like this looks really vibrant gold in the Urban Decay palette. Or maybe it is that depth that's what's making it look not as bright. So this is me topping the highlighter on top of that gold shade. And so that's the gold shade alone, that's the highlighter, and that's the two together. Okay, I think the answer is here. I'm gonna mix them. This is the actual shadow itself, so I don't want to mess with that. I'm gonna put it back. so that made like a slight amount of difference. But you know what? I care about those kinds of differences, so I'm really happy with this. Okay, I rearranged those two. I think this side needed more of a yellow gold at the bottom compared to this side. So I'm looking at another, I know I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm looking at, it was like a picture of the palette in sunlight. And I think this looks perfect with that. So I'm gonna keep it like this for now. Let's just do the 3 mattes that are left, the brown ones. So when it comes to these browns, they are kind of tricky. So I'm gonna just swatch a couple things that I think might work. So I have my CoverGirl neutral palette, and I'm just gonna go for the kind of lighter tone brown here, which you can't see at all. Let me take another swatch. It is very sheer light brown, and I actually love the shade. It's my favorite brown. So I also have this for Ario. That's the thing, this shade is pretty strange because on the Sephora kind of swatches it almost looks peach. So if I take from the Wet n Wild palette, there's this shade that's more peachy. Okay, I know these mattes are not swatching well, but I promise they perform well. So this is the one from the Wet n Wild palette, and this is one from CoverGirl. I'm also looking at this one from the Mini Gold palette. So if I swatch that, oh, I love this shade. Does it work for teak, maybe? Okay, I kind of like that. Keep it there for now. Let's see. I still need something for Sandstone and for Aria. In some swatches also it looks a bit pinky brown. So let's look at the Huda palette. Oh no, that is way too pinky red. Yeah, no, I don't think this is right. There is one swatch online where it looks a little bit like this but lighter. But I think we might have to make these. I didn't think I'd have to make the neutral browns. I thought that would be something I would have. Because I'm still leaning towards putting this one in. And that was the original brown that you can barely see up top. Okay, I'm gonna swatch one more matte from Huda. So also this peachy matte. Okay, that looks close to the pictures that depict Ario as a peach. Alright, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to combine these 3. And it should get a shade that is close to Ario. I'm gonna add a touch of brown to it. Okay, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but this does look slightly more brown, even though it keeps that kind of peachy undertone. So I'm gonna go with this shade. This looks perfect. Okay. Okay. there's always a little bit of like, am I doing too much? But no, this is what the whole purpose of this is. I want to be able to have as close as possible to the actual palette while using the shades I own in my collection. And yeah, I enjoy making it pretty close. So this looks great. This shade over here, it's just really similar to this shade, but it's more yellow undertoned, like a yellow undertoned brown. And I actually think that's what also draws me to this palette, is like a yellow brown is very special. So I'm going to make a yellow brown, and that will be the last thing we do to complete this palette. be too close to the one from the Natasha Denona palette. No, you see how that one is more orange and this one's more yellow undertone brown? I think that's perfect. I think that's how it looks in the, I'm looking at the palette itself in the sunlight photo. And now looking at the swatches, yeah, I feel like teak definitely looks warmer, whereas sandstone looks more yellow. Now this, it seems like in the swatches, like the person swatches, sandstone is a little bit more orangey than this, but honestly, I don't like an orangey brown. I really wanted a yellow brown because I didn't have that. So I'm gonna go with this shade. I think this is absolutely beautiful. Like I really think this is so beautiful. It's something I don't have, and I think something that was really drawing me into the palette. I kept thinking like there's the Dijon shade that is like this mustardy green, and then there's the like yellow tone brown neutral shades. So I think this is perfect for me to use. Although I think if you were actually trying to duplicate it perfectly, you would add a bit more orange. Gosh, look how pretty that shade is. Ah, I can't. This is so pretty. Okay. Final moment. So this is how the palette is looking. I love it. Okay. Hey, I really think this is it. Wow. Wow, it's beautiful. Oh my gosh. This is so stunning. I'm so happy. Oh my gosh. I think, okay. Reflection time. I think I really am so happy that I did this. Like, I can't believe I did this. Like, I can't believe I made this color story, and it's exactly what I wanted from the Natasha Denona Gold palette. And I get to use the eyeshadows I already own, and even like the idea of mixing some highlighters in with eyeshadows to give them more sparkle. Like, that was so much fun. I'm really happy with this. Oh my gosh. And like, I was able to make the Dijon shade and this like yellowy matte shade. And honestly, I think as I was making them, both of these, I kind of realized that these were the two mattes that really drew me into the palette. They're what I really wanted it for in terms of mattes. And as I looked at swatches and everything, I felt like I realized that if I had control over the shades that were in the palette, I would have made Dijon just a little bit more olive, and I would have made this shade just a little bit more yellow. And I kind of did do it with this shade. I didn't go as light and as orange as it is in the gold palette, but that's because this is the shade that I would like right there. Like you get to realize that if you could just tweak things just a little bit, how you would do it, and you have the ability to when you make your own palette. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I feel like everything else was very spot on, which I did want it to be. Like I love the shades that were selected in the Natasha Denona Gold palette. Which is why I wanted it so badly. So I feel like everything else was really spot on. And yeah, I don't know, I think that's it. Like that, this is the video. So let me just clean things up a little bit. Okay, so I tried to put some of the contributing shadows that, you know, were how this was built, just surrounding it. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Like each time that I open it, I'm just so happy. Like I actually have the color story now. It's so pretty. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I don't even know how to end this because I'm like mesmerized. Yeah, I'm just really happy. I think this was a total success. I really have no, like, absolutely, there's no desire left to get that gold palette. I can put that desire to rest. I'm excited to see what Natasha Denona creates next with her color stories. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this process. If you liked the video, please give it a like. Are there any palettes that you would like to make or that you would like to see me make? Let me know. So yeah, I also hope you enjoyed the swatches throughout the video. That was kind of just the process of me making these. And if you really like this type of content, please do subscribe. I love this series on my channel. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I will continue to make these kinds of palettes where I really try to get as close to the shade as possible by mixing shadows in my collection. And I'll probably have a shorts video up this week as well about me doing some eye looks using this. I just can't wait to dig in. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.